I've decided to be happy. I've decided to be glad. I've decided to be grateful for all I ever had. I've decided to let go of all this pain tonight. I've decided to let go of all these demons inside. I know I am blessed. I know all I ever wanted was this. I know I don't need more. I got what I came for. I've decided to be open to that little voice inside, telling me I'm beautiful. It's okay to be alive. I've decided to be kinder to myself when I feel sad. I've decided to be grateful for all I ever had. I know I am blessed. I know all I ever wanted was this. I know I don't need more. I got what I came for.
Well, good morning. That song was wonderful. It was new to me, and I feel blessed to be part of this group. So thank you all, every single one of you who's here today. Welcome to our Vashon Island Unitarian Universalists. My name is Julia Lakey, and I'll be your service leader today. If you are visiting, please participate as you feel comfortable, and you're invited to stay and introduce yourself in conversation, and a very special conversation today with our speaker, as well as around the goodies. Our congregation is committed to individual freedom of belief, welcomes diversity, seeks to promote a sense of community, and fosters religion, which enriches the spirit. We're a mostly lay-led community, strengthened and enriched by weaving together the volunteer contributions of members and friends. As we begin our service, let's take a couple of breaths together to become fully present. Relax, close your eyes if you like, and bring your attention into this moment of communal reflection and sharing. So I hope you felt your bodies and spirits settle into this place a little more deeply as we begin our service. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Swabash, the Coast Salish native people. The Puyallup people have lived on and stewarded these lands since the beginning of time, and they continue to do so today. We recognize that our land acknowledgement is just one small step toward true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of this land and beyond. So I invite you to join me in a responsive reading. It is good. It's good to be. It's good to be here together. As Unitarian Universalists, we value interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. And we covenant to cherish Earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. And with humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life. And we work to repair harm and damaged relationships. And this weekend is a very special one. It's bookended with Halloween on one end and Days of the Dead through the weekend. And we have these amazing creations from one of our resident artists, Matt. Beautiful. And we have a day of sunshine. So many things are converging. So right now, I'd like to invite Maya Cyphers to come forward and light our chalice and share the chalice lighting reading.
This morning, the chalice lighting reading is The Abundance of Our Lives Together by Katie Savani Gelfand. We light our chalice as a symbol of gratitude. In this sanctuary, we harvest bushels of strength from one another. We cultivate a simple sweetness to brighten our spirits. May we be grateful for the ways we nourish and uplift each other. For it is the sharing of this hallowed time together that sustains us.
And our first reading this morning is by Roger Kuntz.
Good morning. For our opening reading, we want to share a quote that Dr. Jojo references in his book. A quote from Cornel West, an American philosopher, public intellectual, and activist known for his work on American pragmatism, democratic socialism, and race, class, and justice. He is a professor emeritus at Princeton University and holds a faculty position at Harvard University. Here's the quote. The country is in deep trouble. We've forgotten that a rich life consists fundamentally of serving others, trying to leave the world a little better than you found it. We need the courage to question the powers that be, the courage to be impatient with evil and patient with people, the courage to fight for social justice. In many instances, we will be stepping out on nothing and just hoping to land on something. But that's the struggle. To live is to wrestle with despair, yet never allow despair to have the last word.
Thank you, Roger. We're now going to listen to a song titled Song for Michael Brown from the album Love is the Only Thing by artist Peter Mulvey. In a recent interview with Music and Musician magazine, he shared this about the song. A long time ago, I wrote Song for Michael Brown, And when I put the song online, this guy said he was a predator and a thug who would have taken your guitar and sold it for crack. So I felt the need to engage with this guy. So let's just start with a general question. Sir, if someone does commit a crime, does that mean they deserve no compassion and there's no chance of rehabilitation? I didn't get anywhere with that guy. He'd already made up his mind. But I'm that guy who wants to apply what I've learned. I used to be an impatient driver. And finally, I freed myself of that confrontation of anger and irritation. So we're going to hear the song now.
I'm asking you to have some compassion for young dead Michael Brown, for his family and for his city and for the man who shot him down, and for all of the marchers, and for the cops and the soldiers, and for the angry white men on TV, for the mothers and the hopeful and the fearful and the hateful and the righteous, and you and me, and for all of our friends, for all of our families, and for our neighbors, one and all, most especially for the next child, for the next child we know will fall. I know God loves us. I know God loves us. I know God loves us. I don't know how. I know God loves us. I know God loves us. I know God loves us. I don't know how, but I'm asking you to have some compassion for young dead Michael Brown.
Certainly have powerful songs this morning, don't we? I'd now like to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Jojo McManus. Dr. Jojo McManus is an award-winning author who has brought along some of his books, by the way. He's a speaker, as you'll see this morning, and executive director on anti-racism and inclusive excellence. He consults, writes, and speaks widely on topics at the intersections of anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, and leadership development. His award-winning book, A Brother's Insight, offers guidance on living an impactful anti-racist life. McManus has held faculty, staff, and executive roles from preschool through 12th graders and higher education, including senior diversity officer. He has served at an HBCU, an international university, an Ivy League institution, and at state university system levels. He's lectured, served on panels, presented, and consulted across the US and internationally for more than 3 decades. You don't look old enough for that. Oh, you feel it. Okay. McManus serves on multiple boards, including the National Advisory Council for the National Conference on Race and Ethnicity, the Board of Directors of Diversity 2000, D2K, and the advisory team for the Race Convo podcast. So this is a little bit of a word snarl. I'm working my way. Previously, he served as an expert for the Global Diversity and Inclusion Benchmarks, the Board of Advisors for the Floyd Rights Campaign, and on the board for the National Association for Multicultural Education. His academic and professional path was initially driven by what he learned growing up in a racially diverse, multicultural, and interreligious family in a small white flight town south of Boston, Massachusetts. His early experience with racism, anti-Semitism, and classicism changed his trajectory toward a life in service to the advancement of racial and social justice. A first-generation college student, Dr. McManus earned his PhD in educational leadership from Florida A&M University, and he has a website. So you can access more at www.drjojo.com. Welcome, Dr. McManus. We're thrilled to have you with us.
I don't think I've ever heard the term word snarl before. I have to look that up. That's a good one. I like that. So you may have to forgive me. I'm going to have to read a little bit more than I usually would because I lost my notes on the plane. I had them in my backpack and my water bottle opened up. And so when I pulled out my notes, it was beautiful. It's it's like a watercolor, but it's not readable. So thank you, Julia. And thank you all for having me here. I'm really glad to be here. I've been hearing about Vashon Island for a few years now. So I'm glad to actually be here. I want to thank Jean for the invitation, even though I understand she couldn't be here today. And also Mary Lee and Catherine for helping make this happen. And a special thank you to my friend Carol and her wonderful husband, Eric, and for the grandkids for letting me use their room. I appreciate that. I'm really glad to be with you here today. I have to do something that I really haven't had to do over the last 35 or so years. And that is that I have to read a disclaimer. So here it goes. The content of this talk represents my personal views. It should not be interpreted as an official statement or endorsement by any organization, institution, or client that I may be affiliated with or employed by, I suppose, in the past, present, or future. That's a word snarl, right? Okay, see? Yes. So that certainly says a lot about the times that we're in. It was about 36 years ago that I was first invited to a high school that was back in my hometown, to speak particularly about how and why we should oppose racism. A teacher who was a friend of the family, Terry, shout out Terry Fernandez, invited me to come and speak to her classes. She was a math teacher, and to speak to a school assembly. And there was no question. There was no issue, no disclaimer. I was just able to do that. And about a year or so ago, she said, I'd love to invite you back again. I'm getting ready to retire and I'd love to, have you do this again. And the school said no. And this past summer, we were allowed to use the school as a venue, but only on the weekend. No students, but we did a book talk. So it was wonderful to be back there and to see everybody, but it really speaks to sort of the time that we're dealing with right now, that the superintendent, the principal, whoever, didn't feel comfortable having me speak on pretty much the same topic, right? So I can only recall speaking at any sort of church event in the past at funerals, giving eulogies. So the good news is that, you know, this has the potential for being the happiest experience I've had speaking at a church. So I have one request though, to make that possible. So please, if we could all commit to not dying within the next 15 to 20 minutes, I think we're in good shape, right? I don't want to take anything for granted, but I think that's a good goal. Right, yes. That's the last disclaimer, I promise. So today I really want to talk to you a little bit about shoring up our commitment to social justice, specifically to being righteously unapologetic in our actions toward ensuring racial and social justice and protecting one another's freedoms. And we've been seeing not only brazen attacks on the work I've spent my life doing around diversity, equity, and inclusion, or the dreaded DEI, but also attacks on rights that we've held dear, you know, for a long time: speech, assembly, privacy, due process, right? Just to name a few, and I'm sure if I watch the news tonight, I'll see some more. As a result, I know I've personally had whiplash from watching how quickly individuals and organizations have backtracked and backed away from their commitments that they've made publicly to advancing freedom, equity, and inclusivity. Even more concerning, since many of those folks really were never committed in the first place, the ones that ran past really quickly. More concerning to me is that so many of us who are genuinely committed have begun to question our convictions, questioning our commitment to social justice, to opposing racism and sexism and other oppressions, because of the times we're living in, right? I've been hearing that from folks all over the country as I've had the chance to go around and talk about the book. And I believe this is stemming from a feeling of being defeated, feeling like we're like this despair, like, you know, 35 years ago, things were better maybe, right? So there's a quote that I start out the book with from Joan Baez that resonates with me right now, that says, "Action is the antidote to despair." And so when I started thinking about what I might say today, I started with that. I thought, okay, how do I encourage folks to act, right? To live out their beliefs. So I included this quote to start the introduction of my book because it's so very easy to fall into that. And over all these years, I've had many days when I've just felt like, okay, this is a complete waste of time. You know, I'm trying my best, especially when I was young. And my brothers and I would go out and we'd speak to other kids at schools, or we'd talk to teachers about their curriculum. And we thought, okay, we did it now, right? This should be done. Can we go play basketball or football or something? Can we just move on with life? This is not deep. Like, this should be a simple thing for people to understand. But that's not really how life works. And whether I look at it or not, I've been around a while and long enough to know that that is not how it works. So one of the things that we're asked to do when we do book talks and which I love when I go to other people's book talks, is hearing people read from the book. I love it because I feel like, oh, now I can hear that voice in my head when I'm reading, right? But it's very weird when you're doing it for your own book. I just want to put that out there. Kind of feel like I'm doing a book report on my life, and that, you know, I might be judged for not knowing quite what the author was really saying. So I feel pretty confident I know what I was trying to say with this book, but we'll see. So I'd like to read a little bit from the introduction, just to give you an idea about who I am, where I came from. And I'll read a couple of other short passages moving forward. Okay. So my commitment to anti-racism started early in life. It did not come about because I was a particularly enlightened child or because I had some intrinsic drive to educate myself on the evils of oppression. I learned about racism because I was Casey's brother. Casey was a brilliant, charismatic, and strong person. He had the most beautiful smile, and he was the kindest person I've ever known. We were born only 11 months apart, and we did everything together as children. Mom even dressed us alike. She thought it was cute. Plus, she loved a good buy one, get one. Nearly every memory from my youth includes Casey. He called me his little big brother because by the time we started school, he was taller than me, even though I was the older brother. In many ways, along with our younger brother, BJ, the surprise child, we were typical kids. We loved sports, we played and fought with each other, and we loved each other in that special way brothers do. Our personalities and interests were different. Casey was outgoing and loved to run and play football, while I was a shy kid, obsessed with basketball. Casey liked to go on long bike rides. I enjoyed reading. Our skin colors were different too. Casey was black, and our little brother BJ and I were white. To be clear, having a brother who was black did not make me or BJ anti-racist. Adopting a black child did not make my parents, or anyone else in the family for that matter, anti-racist. Proximity to a person of color or having a black friend, partner, or family member does not make you anti-racist. It just doesn't. I've met too many white folks who claim that they can't be racist because of some connection, real or imagined, to a black person, black community, or some aspect of black culture, but who then proceed to say or do some things that prove otherwise. Being anti-racist is about beliefs, values, and behaviors. It can certainly be informed by connections to people, communities, and cultures that are different from your own, but proximity does not magically make anyone anti-racist. Our parents, Mike and Maxine, adopted Casey into the family when he was about a month old. Mom and dad shared an interest in adoption, but their initial intent was not necessarily to adopt a black child. Adoption just felt like an important way that they could do something good in the world. So they went through the lengthy process of applying to adopt a baby. It was 1971, the year after I was born. And mom and dad were very excited to learn that their application had been accepted. When they arrived at the adoption agency, they were asked what type of baby they were looking for. Their response was that they would like to adopt a baby who might not otherwise be adopted. They were told that nobody wanted the black children. Only the adoption agent didn't say black children. She used the N slur. Mom responded by scolding her about the bigoted language and saying, well, then we want to adopt a black child. Mom was a force of nature. And so I can imagine, and I talk about this a little in the book, I can imagine what that really went like. And dad was more like me, he was quiet. And I could just imagine him standing tall and quiet next to my mom, like, that's what you get, right? And so Casey was adopted, and I became what what they would call us, which is Irish twins, because we were less than a year apart. And neither one of us looked Irish, but whatever. When we lived in this white flight town south of Boston, in an apartment behind the liquor store, which in Massachusetts is called a packy, right? I really don't understand why they were called package stores. The packages evidently are filled with alcohol. But it was, I don't know, but the packy, it was the Carver package store, right? Or said more appropriately in Massachusetts speak, the Carver package store, right? Yeah. So you can imagine this is a place where a lot goes on in a community, right? It's the liquor store. And this was also the time of crack cocaine when I was coming up. So the front door was alcohol, the back was crack and other kind of problematic things. So we saw a lot. And I think that's the image that people think of when they think of, oh, you grew up in the back of a liquor store. And, and yeah, but this was the best community, right? My dad and my mom were pillars in the community, but they were quiet, right? And if anything happened, anything popped off in the parking lot, anybody started acting up, they just walk out and everybody be like, oh, Mike and Maxine, especially mom, right? But it was a place also where we were living right in between the different communities in this white flight area, right? There was a Black community, primarily Cape Verdean. There were immigrants from the Cape Verde Islands off the coast of Africa. There was a Puerto Rican community. There was this white flight community that was, these new houses, everybody coming from Boston that didn't want to have their kids integrated into schools, right? And then there was the liquor store, right? And everybody drank, right? And it was, if you were having a good time, if you're having a bad time, that was pretty much Dad's business model, was people drink all the time, good, bad, or otherwise. So that should probably work. But it was also where people came together, and in good ways and bad. So we had this very interesting growing up, and I talk in the book a little bit about some of the characters that were part of my life and still are, were these folks that came in the store every day, right? And I worry more about them now because they came in every single day. Like, it's okay, you may have a problem. But this is where we grew up, right? In this small town. When I was preparing to come, I said, okay, I need to read up about the Unitarian Universalist tradition. What is this, right? I've been in a lot of different churches and synagogues and mosques and temples and all these things, and this one's new to me. So I read about it and I said, okay, well, I think as an Irish Catholic Jew, this might be a good spot for me. Like, this could work. And honestly, any congregation that can vibe off of a Cornel West quote and a song from Michael Brown, yeah, that works. I can get with this. And I see this sign up here. I'm like, okay, these are my people. I like this. Anyway, it got me thinking, like, if I'm gonna be reading from my book in a church, I probably should read some scripture or have something to do with something like that, it just felt like I should. So I started thinking about, our religious traditions broadly and what they tell us about how we should treat one another, right? And with the help of AI, I pulled some quotes that I thought, were appropriate and interesting. So the Bible tells us, let all that you do be done in love. All right. The Quran, none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. Okay, aside from the gendering, that's good. As a mother would risk her life to protect her child, her only child, even so should one cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings. Comes from the Metta Sutta. The Talmud tells us, what is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. This is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. In Sikhism, it's taught, where there's love, there's God. Taoism tells us the greatest virtue is to follow the way and the only way, and that the way is loving kindness to all things. Pretty good, right? All right. I can see why these are sacred texts. And I could go on. Every sacred text out there says something about how we should love one another. And at the same time, some of these texts and teachings also say things like, this from the Bible. It says that if your brother, your daughter, your wife, or closest friend tries to convince you to worship another God, you must certainly put them to death. Your hand must be the first in putting them to death, and then the hands of all other people. I guess if they're not dead enough, you get help. So, so here's what I realized. Whether these texts are supposed to have been taken directly from the Word of God or from prophets or other wise ones, there are a couple of things that came to my mind. First, there seems to be a bit of human interpretation, right? Maybe God's first language isn't English, right? Which makes sense if you think about it. The first people were here walking around talking to each other before England or English was a thing. So somewhere between whatever was said and English happening and now, maybe there was a misinterpretation here or there, some sort of loss in translation. The other thing, even if some folks were, heard directly from God, the text may have suffered from that game of telephone thing, So maybe, over here it was said directly from God, don't eat the apple. But by the time it got over there, it became a recipe for apple pie, right? And I like apple pie, so I'm gonna go with that, right? And that's the way we decided to interpret it, right? So my point is that we make choices, right? We make choices even within what we believe to be our most sacred wisdom, right? We make choices about which of those things are going to be the values that guide us. And, I read that on average, I have no idea how they came up with this, but on average, we make about 35,000 choices every day, right? That's a lot of choices, right? My choice to wear this particular shirt today did not require any of my important values to kick in, right? Or none. It just was what I brought. My choice to travel here, though, right? To be away from my daughter and the comforts of home. I'm a homebody. I prefer to be at home and just chill, as my daughter would say. To speak with a group of folks who I've never met before about how and why we should collectively oppose racism and other oppressions. That was guided by my values, right? And nobody had to tell me that, or give me a list of things, including this, that I should know. If you go and talk to a group of strangers in a church with butterfly wings, this is what you should do. Nobody had to tell me that, right? And so one of the things that I try to promote in the book is the idea that developing your core values is an important part of who we are as humans. And that one of our core values, if that can be the opposition to oppression, period, all forms of oppression for all of us, and the advancement of freedom for all of us, that can help guide us. And this is not complicated, right? That's why Casey and I thought if we just went to a few schools, we could solve this when we were 15, right? But the reality is that we overcomplicate things that we don't want to do. And we tell ourselves we can't get these things done. And for me, I think of things like environmentalism, I think of religion, right? I think of all these other things that we commit ourselves to. And if you're an environmentalist, then that's just in your head. And when you have the opportunity and when it makes sense, it kicks in, right? It kicks in to say, oh, this matters. I shouldn't throw this out in the street, or I should use this instead of that, or whatever it might be. And I think what happens is that we're not sure about our own voices in this, right? Does that make sense? So I started thinking about, okay, well, how do I talk about this? And there's a part of the book where I get to talk about my daughter, which is my favorite subject. She's 15, and she's absolutely adorable, and makes my life both wonderful and incredibly difficult every day. Yes, it's 15. And I thought about this passage here, and I think I put it in here. Yeah. So this is about little Mackie and her voice. So little Mackie and her mother, Keisha, finished organizing their lunch and play items on the park bench. Mackie was 2 years old and excited to meet new friends after our recent move to a new town. Once she had decided it was time to meet the other children, she needed no coaxing. Without hesitation, Mackie walked to the middle of the play area, tilted her head slightly, and raised her hands like a celebrity, greeting adoring fans. "Hi," she said, beaming. "It's me. It's Mackie." Then she dropped her hands by her side and waited quietly for the other children to flock. At first, there were just a few, but within moments, every single child had come up and introduced themselves. After their mini formalities, they scampered off to play together as if they had all known each other for years. I wasn't there that day, but I heard this story from her mom, and it just filled me up, right? The thing is, though, that over the years, that confidence has been stomped on by teachers, by peers, by just people, right? And it's been a challenge for her to find her voice again. And so that made me think about even a child who clearly had no fear. And even today, you know, she gets up on stage, she's a theater kid, as if it's nothing, right? I'm terrified right now, right? This child at all ages had no fear to step up on a stage and sing, right? The first time that she did that on an actual stage, her mom and I were doing a program at Boston Public Schools. We had worked for a year with a group of folks in the community to get them, you know, through this program, whatever. And it was a big celebration. And there's all these people. There must have been 200-300 people in the room, mingling around. And before the actual program started at the end, where we're going to give people certificates and all that stuff, right? So kind of a formal, you know, nerdy academic thing, my favorite. And Mackie was there with a bunch of other kids just kind of mingling around, and she just sort of wandered on, and she was, I don't know, 5, walks up on stage, reaches up to get the mic, yanks it down, like had to fight with it, like finally got the mic down and just started singing. And the thing that was hilarious to me was that nobody blinked. Everybody thought this was on purpose, like this was part of the program. And she sang her little song, and I think it was something from a Disney show thing, the ice thing, Frozen. There we go. It was from Frozen. She's singing some Frozen song, and like it was absolutely nothing, and put it back, bowed, went along her merry way like nothing happened. And it's been like that ever since with the stage. But in class and in other spaces, she gets very, very quiet. And we've talked about it. It's really, you know, that's over the years, she's been told basically your voice, that's not appropriate, you know? And so we have to work on that. And I think we as adults, we know what's appropriate. We've been taught when it's appropriate to say something. And we don't want to disturb the comfort of others, right? And so I think because of that, we censor ourselves, right? So when I was watching something on the news and there was censorship in academia and they're talking about all that, and I thought we do that to ourselves too. And we have to fight to step back and say, you know what? It's important for us to lift our voices, especially right now, right? As we're thinking about what's going on in the world. And Michaela is finding her voice again. And I think it's important that we think about how we find our voices, and that it's not just our voices, if that makes sense to you, right? I want us to recognize that lifting your voice can be lending a skill, right? It can be, if you're an accountant, it can be helping out a nonprofit that doesn't have anybody on staff that really knows anything about accounting. Help them out, right? They're trying to do something good in the world. And, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And this morning when I was, you know, trying to make up for the fact that I spilled water all over my notes, and putting everything together on the computer here, I had asked Carol if she had a particular passage that might be good, and she came up with this one, and I think it's right on time. So I will once again quote myself. All right. Massive change requires the might of the masses. Although sometimes I have to dig deep, I find hope in the work of peace and justice-seeking people near and far who remind me that if we work in solidarity, we can change our nation and the world for the better. I used to think being an anti-racist meant abandoning all other work to focus on the most important fight of all. That's why I left the sciences. You have to read the rest of the book to know what I'm talking about. I thought I could not pursue my dream of becoming an astronaut and also contribute in a meaningful way to the struggle against racism. Experience has taught me that I was wrong. I don't regret my decision, but I feel like it is important to encourage others to pursue their passions, whatever they may be, and bring their anti-racist lens with them. We need anti-racist astronauts and scientists in every field, willing to see how racism and other forms of oppression are entangled in scientific communities, organizations, and approaches. We need for them to do better, to bring the Medici effect, again, you have to read the book for that, to life through the power of diverse perspectives to illuminate innovation. We need anti-racist economists to uncover and lead efforts to enhance economic systems to make them inclusive and equitable. We need educators to upend and replace the hidden and not so hidden racist curricula in our schools and to teach the brilliance of all peoples to inspire greatness in generations to come. We need everyone to help oppose racism and demand inclusive perspectives and equitable treatment in their fields of expertise, spheres of influence, and circles of friends. When anti-racists with different professional knowledge and personal experience work in solidarity, it becomes possible to improve complex systems in ways that benefit us all. That's why I like to see the acknowledgement of systemic racism. We do not all need to become DEI professionals in order to live impactful anti-racist lives. The world will change when people in every field, all sorts of careers, and in every community live their own unique anti-racist lives in solidarity with one another. Our full diversity and solidarity is our greatest strength. And I appreciate you pulling that out because I think that speaks to, sort of our tendency to say, well, that's not really for me to do, right? And I think especially right now where a lot of the folks who like Carol and others who have dedicated their lives to doing this work are under extreme attack. I can't count how many of my friends who are diversity officers and other positions like that who have lost their jobs quickly, who have their entire career is built on this. They've been doing very good work. They're good folks, and they've lost their voice in some way professionally. Not that they're not trying to do other things, but this is the time when if the senior diversity officer can't speak up because they've been fired, we need the chief finance officer to speak up. We need the vice president of whatever. We need the person at every level to be willing to say, you know what, it is my responsibility to speak up about this so that this work doesn't, disappear, right? So for me, that's an important piece of how we can all step up and do our part. So with that, I'll say thank you very much, and I look forward to any discussion we get to have at the end. All right.
Well, I hope you don't feel in terror anymore. So let's have a little bit of time of silent reflection to see what of Dr. Jojo's message sifts into your conscious, your awareness, and how you want to respond. Moment of contemplation and worship, which is an old English word that means to consider things of worth. in our abundant silence. One of the things that occurs to me takes me back to your opening quote about Joan Baez and action. And this community is a place of action and contemplation. And I love that about us. So we're going to move on now to joys. So I light this final candle for all the unspoken joys and concerns within our hearts, within our community, within this world. We're going to move on to sing There Is a Love. So if you feel comfortable in singing, the words for it are in the front of your gray hymnal. There is a love. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. And we now resume recording as we finish up. This is the time for our offertory. And as members and friends of the Vashon Island Unitarian Universalists, we commit to supporting our congregation, and financial resources help us pay speakers and staff, support our social justice programs, and maintain the building. Your pledges and offerings support VIUU so that we continue to be a vital community. Our congregation also engages beyond our walls for peace, social, and economic justice, freedom of belief, protection of our planet and its inhabitants. And once a month, we contribute the financial offering to a regional, national, or international organization that aligns with our values. And no surprise, we are very excited because today the nonprofit plate collection recipient is a suggestion from Dr. Jojo, and it goes to D2K. D2K was founded in 1993 and was named because the founders thought the organization would end by the year 2000. It became a nonprofit in 2015 and continues on as a community of DEI professionals with a unique purpose to nurture and learn from each other in an increasingly difficult environment. At present, in a world increasingly shaped by artificial intelligence, many of the material problems humanity has long wrestled with, food, housing, even environmental repair, are on their way to technical solutions. But what no algorithm or machine can generate, however, is the quality of our human experience. The ability to meet one another with presence, dignity, and right relation. And this is the domain of communities like D2K. What they found is that they're not only a think tank for diversity, equity, and inclusion, but they're a living practice ground where people learn how to be together, to hold space across differences, and to cultivate the capacities of empathy, belonging, and liberation that will remain essential no matter how advanced our tools become. D2K sits at a vital crossroads. As societies undergo the dislocation of job loss, cultural disruption, and the rise of technologies that both connect and divide, our community of D2K offers a rare model of resilience and collective wisdom. Rooted in the disciplines of DEI and informed by spiritual and cultural traditions, they explore what it means to relate as fully human in a time when the human itself feels a bit uncertain. An investment in D2K is an investment in humanity, the skills and spaces of connection that no machine can replicate. With modest resources, we can sustain an engine of dialogue, belonging, and transformation to help individuals, organizations, and communities navigate a rapidly changing world. They are investing in the human side of the AI era. They're building a community of belonging in a time when disconnection is easy and cheap. And donations allow D2K to give scholarships to colleagues who have lost their jobs and or contracts due to the crackdown on DEI and organizations. So please donate cash or check made out directly to D2K. And the D and the K are capitalized. And if today's donation is going towards your yearly pledge, then just make sure to note that on your donation. Otherwise, all funds collected today go directly to D2K. And our greeters will now be passing around the baskets. And as we receive the offering, please join in and we give thanks, which again are in the front of your gray hymnals. Give thanks for this precious day. We're all gathered here and those far away for the land we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. We're all gathered here and those far away for the love we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. And now we're going to transition to our final reading with Roger.
This final reading is from Langston Hughes. Because of the content, I feel funny since I'm not African American, so if it helps you, close your eyes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. Then, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America.
So our last musical piece will be hymn 100 in your gray hymnal. I've got peace like a river. Since we don't have a live musician today, we'll be listening and singing along with an audio recording by artist Linda Randall. And if there are any strong voice song leaders who want to be up here, go for it. There's one microphone for you. So hymn 100, I've got peace like a river.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, so much joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, so much peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river in my soul.
Okay, was that a word snarl or not?
Oh my goodness. We sang it, didn't we? Sorry. We were having fun, though.
So now we're going to move to extinguish the flame with Maya again.
Our extinguishing the chalice reading is by Reverend Michelle Collins. Our gratitude continues. This flame is extinguished, but our gratitude continues in action. May your appreciation for life's gifts translate into work that extends those same blessings to others.